Eli, we're done. Can you make sure you do the punk rock one?
Let's go!
Hello, family. Welcome back to the Primas podcast. I am Cindy. What is up? Jessica, Primis, how are you doing?
Hey, Prima. Happy end of February. I cannot believe how quick this week is coming by. This year, 2021.
February 2021 is going to go in the books for me. It's coming out of my autobiography, a show. So today we're talking about self-respect. And we're going to talk about what is self-respect? What does that look like? Because it's a relatively new term. I think self-love and self-care are terms we throw out there a lot, like in the past few years. But once you start getting to, I don't know if it's adulthood or like when life hits you and you're like, wait, what? You know, you're just kind of like, are you really, really doing the work? And so I often thought that before my self-love was like face masks and, you know, my night routines, which are important, but it doesn't solve what's inside, right? Like it doesn't solve our childhood trauma to do face masks. Like it just doesn't. Therapy does, meditation does. And so today is really cool because we're going to talk about and give different examples of what self-respect looks like, because we can't talk about self-love. One of my friends told me this one time without addressing self-respect. And I didn't know what that meant. And I Googled and I did a lot of research and I'm still in my journey. But to help us out with today's topic is a health and energy alignment coach. She is 100% plant-based or vegan, practices veganism. She grows and makes a lot of her own food. She is an athlete who's done a Spartan run. She's a fitness instructor, a yoga instructor. She has the best skin I've ever seen in my life. She's gold, like 100%. And so much more, but I can talk on this forever. So Jessica, welcome to the Primas podcast. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yay.
Oh, thank you so much. Yay. Thank you for that intro and warm welcome. I'm super excited to be here with you ladies today.
Yay.
Thank you.
I have to start off by saying you have such a beautiful name.
A beautiful, but very common name.
I know. We were just talking about that. So welcome, Jess.
Yes.
I feel like I'm on that level. I can call you Jess.
Oh yeah, you can call me Jess for sure.
Okay, perfect. I wanted to say a little quote before we get started, just to get us started on what does self-respect look like. And this quote is by Rupi Kaur. He says, "How you love yourself is how you teach others to love you." And so when we talk about boundaries, or when we talk about mind, body, and soul, we're going to break this conversation down a little bit to get it a little organized, so that we can probably set goals or aspire to work on like our mind and what does that look like, which is mental health. And then our body, we're going to talk on nutrition and like movement, and then our soul, which would be our emotional health. So starting off with mental health and setting boundaries, Jessica, you have a quote that I really love in your Instagram. And go follow her on Instagram, by the way. She is under Soul. I'll have this in the description box. Soul, SOL.body.balance. You say, your energy is the true currency. Invest in it, place value on it, protect it. And so I wanted to get us started with what did you, I know that like for me, that says a lot of self-respect. So what did you mean by that quote?
So I believe that your end result with anything is going to match your investment. So as much as you invest in yourself, whether that's, your fitness, your nutrition, your self-care, whatever you invest in, like that, your end result is going to match that and it's going to reflect that. So if you see somebody that is really fit, then you're like, okay, you really invested the time into committing to your fitness. If you see somebody that, is super healthy, you're like, okay, you really invested in nutrition. You learned what works for your body. You learned what works for you. So I just believe I'm just a huge advocate of self-care all around. And there's different, and I know you talked about breaking it down. There's different levels and different kind of building blocks. And I honestly think a lot of it for me personally started with fitness. Like that was kind of the gateway. And it went beyond, yes, in the beginning, it was like, okay, you know, I want to feel better about myself. I want to get a little more toned. And, you know, after kids, you're like, okay, I want to get my body into a place that I feel comfortable. But I think what fitness did for me was really build mental strength. And that was something that I could take into other things that I did. I often go back to fitness when I'm talking about things or kind of describing things, because it really is a mental game, and it's about committing to yourself, having self-discipline, and showing up every day. And when things get tough and things get hard, you continue to push, and you're like, okay, no, one more set, or I got to get through this class. And that's what really helped me, I think, develop the self-respect and the boundaries and the other things that followed. But it was really fitness for me that kind of opened my mind up to those possibilities. Because before, you know, like you said, you kind of think you're doing self-care and you're like, oh, I'm going to go get a pedicure, self-care day. And that's nothing. I mean, it is something, it is self-care, but it's not mental self-care. And that's a completely different thing. It's one thing to do something and treat yourself, but it's another thing when you're actually teaching yourself how to have that self-respect and that self-love. And a lot of that for me came through treating my body good and learning how to build upon that.
Would you say that? So, one thing that I started to run into, I guess, in my adulthood, and I feel like it's a part of my destiny, is that I've always been very nice and too nice.
Mm.
And I don't know if it's a cultural thing, you know, because if you ever stand up for yourself in any way, to your parents, to your brothers, to your sisters, to your partner, whoever at work, then, you know, you're categorized into like, oh, well, you're mean, you're a bitch, you're too strong-minded for a woman, or, you know, whatever that is. And it finally hit me. I feel like it's like my destiny, because it finally hit to the point where it's like, now I have to do something about it. Like I have to work on my boundaries, because I'm getting it from everywhere that it doesn't feel good when people don't respect me. And it's not like the blatant F you. It's not disrespect in that way, right? It's when you tell somebody no and then they keep pushing you. And in our family, I guess in the family
Yeah.
dynamic, it's very normal to feel pressured to always say yes. And so I just wanted to see if there was something that you could talk to, because you talk a lot about how you invested in yourself. And I know that you had to have experienced some pushback from family, from, you know, whatever
Right.
your environment. And like, how did you handle some of your boundary setting, like in the beginning?
So I'm still learning it. Even now, it's something I've been practicing for a really long time. I think it is cultural. You know, especially for me, coming from, so my mother's Filipino, my father's Mexican, and both cultures are very, you know, you're brought up to not speak up, to be respectful. If you say your opinion and they don't like it, it's disrespectful. And it's like, no, it wasn't disrespectful. You just didn't like what I said. So those are all things that I've learned and I'm still learning. It is a very hard cycle to break. And again, I think the more that I started to respect myself, and the stronger that I became physically, mentally, I've really learned how to build some of those boundaries. And I still am, you know, I think it's just my nature to be a nurturer. I want to take care of everybody. I want to nurse everybody back to health. I want to drop everything I'm doing and run to everybody's aid. If something's happening, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm there. So it is something that I'm I'm still learning to this day to navigate through, because it's you have to unlearn, and then so unlearning those behaviors. And once you start to unlearn them, you start to see them in your families, and you're like, oh my gosh, I know why I do this, because look at my mom does this. And in certain cultures, especially in Latin cultures and island cultures, the women are very catering and very nurturing and very submissive to certain things. So yeah, it's definitely been a process, and I'm still learning how to navigate through that. But I've gotten a ton better, and the better that I get navigating through that, the easier things become.
I like when you said that, just like unlearning, because it just reminded me of in growing up, we were always taught, yeah, we have to take care of everyone and we come last. And I think the women around me, or the people, or just being around other people, we're unlearning that tradition. We're changing it, because now we are putting the emphasis on ourselves. Now self-care isn't that once every blue moon. Like I can't think of the time where my mom would have time for herself, raising 3 girls, and she was a stay-at-home mom. So a lot of women or other people would be like, oh, well, you're home all day, but it's like, no, it's self-care isn't just her go getting her nails or her hair when she needs. It's about mind, body, and soul, taking care of her mind, body, her nutrition, her emotions, before she could take care of anybody else. So it is definitely unlearning all that and communicating these emotions, because a lot of time I feel like when we're talking, it's not valid. People aren't listening because they're like, oh, you're nagging. Oh, it's all this negative connotation behind it. But boundaries are communication. I like that figure of speech when they say, like, don't assume, right? When they say that, like, because you make an ass out of you and me. And that's very true. I like to communicate. I'm learning that now, to set my boundaries, to say, no, well, I don't like this. This makes me uncomfortable. Or no, how did I make you feel? Tell me, talk to me. And it's laying that foundation of examples of what we want and to receive. It's just different.
Absolutely. And I think, again, I think when you get to a certain level of self-respect in your own journey, and people see you not only just talking about it, but doing it, I think that's where I hit a point. It's taken me a long time. It's taken me years to get to a point now where people look at my lifestyle, they look at the things that I'm doing, and they're like, okay, like I respect you more, because they see the work. And it kind of goes back to culture and just having to unlearn things, and then you start to relearn that, no, I do have a voice. No, I am strong, and I can lead my tribe in a certain way. That's just, but you have to do that work for yourself. As a woman, I think women have so much power and so much strength. It's just been their light and dimmed over time. And you have to rebuild that, and you have to build that credibility for yourself, within your families. And that's why it's so important for me to be in the space that I'm in, and have, especially like my daughter who's now 20, my nieces, the women in my life. I have a lot of even my son's friends that he went to school with, who they're like, wow, I really like, they admire the way that I live or the things that I'm doing. And it makes me feel good. It's like, okay, this journey has been so worth it. And I feel like I'm just beginning. But you have to just get to a place where you have to start the work, and it's not going to be overnight where people see it, but you have to just start it. And then eventually people are going to start to see it, and they're really going to respect your authority more. So, I think that's just where you have to get, especially in your family. otherwise they will just look at you as a female, and you're just another female, and they have the authority. And that's, again, it's a cultural barrier that we have.
I think you both said something along the lines of, or maybe, well, when we say no, for example, and we've heard this, I've seen this a lot before, where it's like no is a complete sentence. And that is so hard in our culture. And I'm sure it's not just our culture, where especially as women, I think when a guy says no, people just naturally assume, yeah, that's a complete sentence. He doesn't need to explain himself. But when a female says no, we are so pressured, and then we over apologize because they're like, no, and and then they see our weakness, and then they go in like, you're good. She's easily going to be able to say yes if I just keep pushing.
Right.
And I just wanted to ask both of you if you can give examples of a boundary that you have set, and it could go along the lines of like, me right now, I'm practicing to say no and not feeling guilty. Like, I'll do it, but it eats me up inside because I've been conditioned, to say yes and to make it work, to put others in front of me. So I wanted to ask you all if you can think of a time where you had to set a boundary, and even if you're still working on it, what did it look like and what did it feel like?
I think the biggest boundary for me that I have worked on setting is not so much the ability to say no, and I have now said no to things where I would say yes before. Anytime, especially with my family. I think that's my biggest hurdle, is with my family. I have that feeling like I'll do anything for my family. So when they call, I will literally drop things. I used to just drop everything and come running. And now I've gotten to a place where I'm like, I don't have to do it right now. They're not asking me. Sometimes they don't even ask me to do it right now. I just assume everything is urgent because it's them. So I would tend to put my family above everything. And now I am a little bit more cognizant of that. So I try to when do you need that by? Or is it okay if I get back to you by the end of the week? Or when, my grandparents call me to run errands, it's like, okay, can I do that? Maybe not tomorrow, but the next day. So trying to kind of schedule things in and asking and being more open and not assuming. I think a lot of it was just me assuming. So it got to a place where they knew when they called me, I was going to run and do it right then and there. So that's a big boundary for me that I have continued to work on, is just being a little bit more open with my own communication and not assuming that people need me right then and there, and knowing that I can do things when it's convenient for me. I mean, if it's something urgent, then that's different. But if it's an errand you need me to run, or it's something you need me to type up and send, I can get to it this week, but I kind of, try to schedule things in. And I really make my health is my priority, because if I'm not healthy and I don't feel good energetically, I'm no good to anybody. So I really try to be very disciplined with no, that's my workout time. No, that's my time to do this, and not overwhelm myself, because I can really overwhelm myself with over scheduling things. So that's just something that I worked on for myself, is not so much saying no, but getting to things when I can, and making sure that I'm not putting too much on my plate.
I like that. Like timing yourself. It's like a sense of time management, because like you said, there's no urgency. So why carry it, or why put the pressure on yourself to say, I need to get it done. I need to get it done today, when it's like, no, I could do it next Monday. Like that's letting go of that control and that stressor. So I like that. That's a good one, Jess.
Yes.
Mine would be, and as soon as you said it, Cindy, I already had thought of it. It's saying my boundary is like not being unapologetic for any of my actions. I catch myself, or I used to catch myself a lot in even text messages, or even when I'm saying something at the end, I'll end with, I'm sorry. And I don't know why. It's because I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to make them feel bad. And I have to consciously, like, I'm still putting that into practice. And I just noticed that about myself, but it's doing things and not feeling bad. And it kind of correlates with your stress, where I'm just kind of doing things in my pace, in my time. And if it's an emergency, then definitely I'm going to drop everything. But if you need me to review something, if you need me to do an errand for you, then that's different. Then I need to prioritize when it could fall in my schedule, because I don't have a lot of free time. My days are planned out very thoroughly. And for me to just say, like, I could do it, then I add that stress to myself. But I don't like to say I'm sorry, and I don't feel like I have to. That's where I'm coming to.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. That's a big one. I think sorry. And also it made me think of always feeling the need to justify. Like if you do say no, like, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't do it. Because like, you know, feeling like you always have to justify why you can't do something, or why you don't want to do something. I think that's something that women do a lot of, you know, feeling that guilt. It's a guilt thing, and feeling like we have to justify and we owe everybody an explanation when really you don't.
Exactly.
I like how you both mentioned time, like time management, because that is a part of self-love, right? And a lot of people don't look at it that way, or they find it offensive when you're like, yeah, when can we talk? This is my availability. I talk like that to my family, to my mom, who we live together. But I'm like, okay, this is serious. Let's put it in the calendar. And I mean, it's been rough for her. I mean, it's been rough for anybody, right? Like that's like, if you're the only one practicing transparent boundary setting, I mean, oh, we're still working on our relationship, but it's gotten better because she's starting to almost copy that. Like she's trying to do what I do, which is like perfect. Push, like you should also do this back to me. This isn't I'm trying to be an authority figure in the household. Like, no, like what, or I do the same to my daughter, you know, I'm just like, I use the word respect a lot with her because she's 4, she's little, but or defend yourself, you know, like all of these concepts were things that I didn't learn until way later in life, which I suffered, quote unquote, because I'm good with everything that's happened up until this point. But it just caused a lot of headaches to I almost felt like I created these little monsters, right? Like because, and I didn't do it consciously, but when someone would push my boundary to the point where I'm like super exhausted, stressed out, I don't know what to do with myself, because I've allowed this other person or situation to turn into a monster because I didn't stop it in time. And so I think that's why boundaries are so important. And you both mentioned also family, because if you can set boundaries with your family members, it's going to be very uncomfortable. But once you get past that hurdle and you normalize it because you're practicing it and you're not afraid of feeling uncomfortable, then it becomes easier to do it at work, to people you just meet, your friends, because it's like, man, me and my mom have been through a lot. And so therefore I can handle a stranger. You know what I mean? Like the people closest to you are going to impact that situation. It makes us so uncomfortable, but you got to step outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, and you set the tone for yourself, right? Like what you expect from others and what you expect of yourself. Like that's the biggest thing, is you are the role model, and you have the power over your own time and your own life. So if you want people to respect your time and your schedule, then you know you have to kind of set those boundaries. And it's like, okay, let's sit down and let's see when this can work for both of us. So it's all a part of self-respect, for sure.
Yes, don't forget to set boundaries, because we have to teach others how to treat us. And that's kind of like what the quote I said in the beginning. Again, it's from Rupi Kaur. How you love yourself is how you teach others to love you. And it is a kind of a new concept, at least for us in our culture. I don't know if it is a cultural thing, but we've never questioned that before. We just get older and get bitter. A lot of my mom and her generation are so bitter and they don't know why. And when I start working on myself, I start to see like, this is why, because you allowed so many, not consciously, but still, like, you can still do it now. You can still practice setting boundaries with me, with your coworkers, but it starts with identifying that yes, it is uncomfortable, but it's a part of self-respect, and you're learning and unlearning so many things. So there, it's very uncomfortable. You don't want people to stop talking to you. You don't want people to get upset. We're so social, as humans. We don't want anybody to get upset, and so that's why we justify the heck out of our nose when it's like, no, I'm not hurting you in any way, shape, or form. I'm not disrespecting you, but that's how they take it. When you say, no,
Yeah.
you need to respect this boundary, you're not respecting it, there's a little pushback, and it's like the end of the world, right? People will
Yeah.
stop talking to you for like 2 months or
Yeah.
whatever,
They
and especially
assume
because
that
it's your
you're,
family.
and again, I think it goes back to them assuming you're being disrespectful, or, and it's like, no, but it's a learned behavior, right? So that's their generation was taught by their parents, that was taught by their parents, and um, it's just a learned behavior. And at some point, somebody has to break the cycle. And I think that's why we have to be aware for our daughters and those that come after us, that no, you can have a voice in this too. And you don't have to just say yes to everything. You don't have to justify every no, or every time you don't want to do something. You shouldn't have to go through this apology, apologizing for even not being able to do something. We shouldn't have to apologize for that all the time. So
Any other thoughts before we move on?
No.
So I wanted to ask you, Jessica, in your Instagram, you talk a lot about like rituals. For me,
mhm.
I have a lot of routines, for example, that are part of my self-respect, which it's self-care, self-love. But the reason I started to go hardcore was when I had my daughter. I
Mm,
thought I had time management down before. No, I every single minute in my schedule is dedicated, even if it's just dedicated to me time. No one's gonna mess with that me time. I'm not taking phone calls during that. Like if you're
mm,
not scheduled, we're not talking. Or like things like that. And it's not out of disrespect. It's just I'll schedule you in and I'm gonna honor your time.
right.
But again, people here like, really, you got to schedule me in? Like, yes, that's a boundary of mine, and I've had to practice it for so long. And because I don't like to be on my phone all the time, or I take long breaks from
Right. Yeah.
social
Yeah.
media, for example. So those are some of my boundaries where it's like, yeah, it hurts, but my peace and happiness and my alignment is more important. So I wanted to
Right.
ask you, I have night routines with my daughter and myself, and morning routines, but you have rituals, and I want to move into a more like, she's getting older, not older, she's
hmm
4, but still, she's
Yeah.
some of the routines that we have right now. I feel like there's not there could be a little bit more emphasis on showing her more self-respect and self-love. And I just kind of wanted to pick your brain because you have daily rituals that you use in
hmm
order to stay aligned and grounded, and I wanted to see if you can share that with us and give us some inspiration.
Yeah. So for me, my rituals, it's all a part. I look at it all a part of my health. So it's all, I believe everything is energy, right? So that helps me to kind of recalibrate myself, balance my energy, get aligned, and start my day. So that's just as important to me as getting up and brushing my teeth, or getting up and breaking my fast with fruit. I look at my rituals, and I guess they could be looked at as routines, but to me they're rituals because they have more of a spiritual meaning to them. But again, and they may look different every day. I don't set a timer and say, okay, I have to spend 10 minutes on this ritual. Sometimes my day starts a little earlier based on my work schedule. Sometimes it can start a little later. But I always make sure to ground myself. And that's sometimes it looks like doing some sage and Palo Santo and lighting it and just kind of really centering myself. I do have like a morning kind of, or actually do the same morning and night, but I have kind of the same prayer that I kind of go through. And in the beginning, when I first kind of started doing this, like I literally just wrote something down in my notebook. of kind of some affirmations and things that I wanted to remind myself of daily. And, I wanted to be able to start my day with something. And then, of course, it just becomes habit, and it's, you literally just know it in your head. And that could look different for everybody, whatever is important to you, whatever is going to really ground and center you. But that's something that's super important to me, to ground myself in the morning and then at night, right before I go to bed. Sometimes I'll do it in a, seat, like sitting in a meditation pose, and sometimes I'll just do it as I'm laying down with my, head on the pillow, and I'm like ready to fall asleep. But I always make sure to do that. Like, that really keeps me centered. So yeah, again, it's all a part of my health. It's all a part of what keeps me balanced and aligned daily, so that I can show up for the people that need me, and I can show up in my work and everything that I'm doing in my life.
And you said that you do a prayer or affirmations. Can you give us an example, like of I don't know, like I'm thinking of people who are like, I do a lot of affirmations and I want to turn it into a prayer because, like you said, I want to get more of that spiritual thing that it's missing from my routine. And so I don't know if you have like examples of what that could look like.
Sure. So again, and this may look completely different to everybody. I think everybody should kind of create what feels good for them, regardless of whatever their belief system is. I'm not discriminatory on anybody's belief system and what they believe in. But one of the prayers that I say is, use me, God, show me how to take what I am, who I want to be, and what I can do. Use me for a purpose that is greater than myself. So that is one that I say every morning.
I like words of affirmation. I read it, the first time I ever heard that was in the 5 Languages of Love book. And I like to give those. It's giving positive terms of endearment to either myself or people around me. And I associate it with like a love language, but essentially it's giving yourself that positive reinforcement. Like, I would say, oh, I'm strong, or I can do this, or I'm ready for this. And it kind of goes back to our mind, like just reassuring, like, okay, we're capable of doing this. We're ready for today. Whatever we have going on, we're good. And then at the end of the day, you're just releasing it. Like, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to rest, and I'm going to have a good night's worth, because me and Cindy talk about our quality of sleep all the time. So it's kind of letting it go, but saying it or praying it. I'm sorry. I don't even know how to say it. Saying a prayer.
Yeah, again, that's why I think it should look different, or it will look different to everybody, and it should be something that's really important to you. To me, asking for that guidance and kind of having something set that's what feels good for me, is that set guidance, and being able to start my day knowing that I've said that just makes me feel good.
One thing that I say, I haven't said it in a little bit, but it just reminded me right now. In the morning, sometimes, when you're too tired to get up, and I rarely have this issue because I go to sleep early. Like, I always get my sleep in, but it was either, I don't know, a time where maybe I wasn't sleeping correctly at night, and in the morning I didn't want to get up. And I remember Deepak Chopra one time, he does a lot of little meditations like on YouTube and on his stuff. And so one time he said to tell yourself when you're feeling tired, to tell yourself, I am energized, my body is strong, I'm ready for the next task. And so I started to say it right after work on my way to pick up my daughter. Because after work, it's like, oh, I just want to go home and rest for a little bit. But that wasn't my situation. Like, I was going to go pick up my daughter. And I don't like being tired when I go and get her, like she wants my
Right.
attention, and we get to spend time for the next few hours. If you think about it, it's the evening time. And I didn't like being tired when I got to her, because you're irritable, you're moody, and I had
Right.
to
Yeah. Yeah.
constantly like catch. I just didn't feel right, and so I started to tell myself that like I'm energized, and it really, words of affirmation really are powerful, but you have to do them and you have to believe them as you're saying them, because I couldn't
You
say
do.
I'm not going to feel tired when I get up. It's like, no, right now I feel energized, I feel great, my body is ready, my body is capable, because I take care of my body, I respect my body. Like I just start reminding and really starting to believe and tell myself, like, it sucks, but it's like convincing myself, like, no, you are
Yeah.
strong, you are good, you are energized, you're eating well, you're sleeping well, you're gonna be fine. The
Yeah.
fatigue goes away because it's kind of mental, like my job isn't that crazy where I'm like, oh my god, like I'm so drained. I don't like to get jobs like that because of my daughter, like I like to be ready for her. And so yeah, I just wanted to give out that example. So thank you for sharing your rituals.
Yeah. No problem.
I'm really trying to put together my like little prayer, like for the morning and at night, and then to teach
Yeah.
my daughter to put hers together. Not, she's not going to feel the way I feel. So whatever she wants. Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah. It's whatever feels good for you. And again, for me to say, use me for a purpose that is greater than myself. Like, I know, I believe at the end of the day, like I am here for a purpose, and whatever that purpose is, whatever happens throughout my day, whether it was a good situation, the best news, or a bad situation, I know that there's a purpose in that. And again, that just to start my day with that prayer just makes me feel like I'm ready for whatever you're going to throw at me. And then at night to kind of close it up and say it again. Um, it's like I just know that I am serving my purpose, whatever that is, good or bad. I know that there's a purpose behind it, and that helps me to stay grounded and helps me to not get so caught up in that situation, or to continue to manifest and overthink it and stress off of that situation. It kind of just helps me to let go.
Mhm. There's a thing that you say, there's a quote that you say, which we've kind of been talking about, where it's very selfish, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it is selfish to do your own thing, to schedule people and to manage your time and tell people that you love, no, not right now, but I'll get to it, but not right now. Setting these boundaries, but they are a selfish act, but they are for our loved ones. And so one of your quotes, you say, who do you want to be for those you love? And
Mm,
it's important because although it looks selfish, I'm doing everything that I'm doing on a very individual level so that I'm the best mom that I can be, or the best
right.
daughter, or the best career person, right? Like I'm still finding my journey, but I know that everything that I do when it comes to employment, now I'm conscious that I'm putting my best foot forward. I don't care if it's a janitor position, a receptionist position, an organizing position. In the past, I still kind of would show up a little late, wouldn't prepare to the max, and now I'm taking myself super duper serious because
Right.
things come when you start working on yourself. And so yeah, I wanted to see what
Right.
if you can give us why that is so important. That it's selfish, but at the same time, it's for our loved ones, really.
Right. Um, I don't necessarily think it's selfish. I think it's all perspective, right? The way you look at it. Just because you say yes to somebody, or just because they ask you to do something, doesn't mean it's the right thing for you. So I think that's where we have to differentiate. Um, Saying no is not a selfish act, or scheduling them in is not a selfish act, um, because that may not be. It's priority, right? You're prioritizing the things in your life that are going to serve you. So we can't just say, when you really truly have self-respect and self-love for yourself, you can't say yes to everything. You can't allow people, just anybody, in your space and in your energy. So you get to choose, once you reclaim that power, you get to choose who you want in your space and who you're going to say yes to and what priority that takes in your schedule and in your life. But if we don't have that self-respect and we're not putting ourselves first, again, if we're no good to anybody. So if I'm running myself ragged and I'm not making time to work out, I'm not making time to prep my meals or, eat high vibrational foods, I'm no good to anybody. So I'm going to show up and I'm going to be, half-ass, not my authentic self and not my best self. So I'm not doing anybody any justice to show up grumpy, to show up and, telling myself like, I don't really want to be here. I don't really want to do this. So I think when you put yourself first and you are in a really good, strong, healthy place, every time you show up, you're giving your best and you're giving your best energy or putting your all into what you're doing, whether that's running an errand for somebody or showing up for an interview. So it's just a matter of perspective, but I don't necessarily think that we should look at it as a selfish act, because it's really not. It's a very unselfish act to put yourself first and to make your health your priority. That's the most unselfish act you can do for people, because when you do show up, you're going to be 10 times better.
That reminded me, Jess, sorry. I remember when you wrote on your Instagram page, you wrote the analogy of our bodies are like a car. And that's true, because you're fueling whatever you're putting in your nutrition. It affects your attitude, your mood, your energy levels, and then your quality of sleep. So then when you wake up the next day, like you said, you're not going to come to wherever you show up, whether it be whatever employment you are, for your kids, even for yourself, like saying, okay, well, after work, I'm going to go to the gym, but you're so tired because you didn't do everything the day before to set yourself up for success.
Yep.
And then
Absolutely.
and then you have like a shitty attitude. Like we've all been around those people and we just see it. And it's just like, well, you're affecting my mood now. And then I don't want to be around you because you're going to bring me down. And it just goes back to your energy and like what you give off to people.
Yeah, 100%. And that starts with you, right? So you are in control of your energy, and that's by your nutrition. It's how you're fueling your body. It's what you're doing with your body, creating movement in your life and some kind of form of exercise. Even if it's taking a walk, you don't have to be like a hardcore, fitness person, but even if it's taking a walk, but how you create your energy, that's what you're going to bring to every situation. And that's where health gets so much deeper than what people actually view it as or what it's perceived as. They just think health, that's what you eat and it's working out and you have a nice body and you're healthy. But it's everything that comes along with that. And it's the energy. I really, truly believe, and I feel that your health is the energy and the energy that you bring. And you're going to bring that into every situation moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. So I agree. It's also not a selfish act when you do that.
Mm-mm.
So one of the reasons why I was so drawn to you, Jessica, was because of your skin. And I don't even mean that because I know I say this to you all the time, but I don't even mean that in a like superficial way, but just because after reading like your story and listening to like this other podcast you were a part of and learning, I hate to bring this up because I'm not meaning it in a negative way, but like your age and you look so young. To me, that's a sign of this person takes care of themselves. They're eating right. They don't have a sign of aging because they're taking care of their mind. It's not just eating, it's every single aspect. And when we start to age, I'm getting into my mid 30s and I'm not trying to compare, but you can tell when someone is in their 30s or 40s and 50s, but they look older. And that has a lot to do with our lifestyle, our diet, our environment. And then we fall into we're aging, so that's why my back hurts. Well, it's my age, that's why I get this. And it's like, no, I like, don't blame it on your age. That's like a marketing scheme, definitely, that we've been fed, but it's not. It's your environment. And your environment, like we've talked, it has to do with your time management. Stress will age you. The foods you eat,
yes.
right? Like and we don't think about that. We don't think, oh, well, it's not chronic stress. It doesn't matter. If you're constantly stressed because you're not eating or sleeping well, or because you are in pain, because you're not moving, and you haven't moved for a long time, that's not, you're aging because you're not happy. You're not living you're not fulfilling your true self, your true life. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you if you can talk a little bit about why you chose to be vegan, and maybe some tips if someone wants to start that lifestyle, but they're so used to eating heavy animal product that where can we find the balance?
Sure. So I decided to become vegan. So again, I kind of stepped into the fitness world, and that got me, a little more aware of nutrition and how that all, affects and works hand in hand. And then I started noticing. So when I started to train and I started to coach people, I started to notice, especially because majority of my clients are either Hispanic or, from some type of culture. And a lot of them had diabetes and they were young. And when I started really coaching people and people started asking me to, write nutrition plans for them, I'm a total research person. So like, I want to know what I'm doing before I do anything. So I just dove really deep into nutrition and started doing a lot of, research, a lot of studying, and I was like, wait a minute, diabetes isn't what I thought it was. Like in my mind, I thought, oh, it's somebody that eats sweets. And I'm like, but these, a lot of people, it's just like a chronic thing with, I would say 25 to, and I know people have it even over 40, but like the people that were coming to me, like, these are like young people. Why are so many people either diabetic or pre-diabetic? And when I dove into it, I started to really figure out that animal products has a lot to do with it, and a lot to do with our health. So I decided to kind of, at that point, I was only eating chicken and I had eggs. I had, I was still eating things that had dairy in it, but I wasn't like drinking a glass of milk. But eggs, chicken, like I had already kind of moved away from red meat and moved towards like really lean meats. And I was thinking, I needed to have chicken and I needed to have protein. And when I started doing my research, I'm like, we don't need as much protein as we're led to believe. And it just got really deep for me. So I'm like, you know what, let me try this out. Like, let me do like a little trial run on myself and see how I feel. And I ended up cutting out all animal products and I never went back. And it's been almost 6 years for me now. So that, once I started to truly, and when I do something, I'm usually like, I'm an all or nothing type of person. So I just dove right in and just continued to, keep any dairy products, any animal products out of my diet. And I noticed that my skin started to transform, my energy level. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. So I really truly saw the power of changing the way that you eat and how it starts to affect everything else in your life. So I, became more of an advocate of a plant-based diet. I still have clients that I work with and coach that still want to, eat some type of meat or some type of seafood. And I'm never like, oh, I don't frown upon it or make anybody feel like they're doing something wrong if they are. I just try to inspire and help coach them through the process. I think the plant-based diet for me has been a game changer in, again, my skin, in the aging process, in my energy level. I think it's brought me closer to nature. It's kind of changed my spirituality. So it's caused me to think of things a lot differently. And you don't realize how much you are contributing to some of the things that are going on in the world today, as far as global warming and things like that. Like it just gets deep. It's like an onion. You just kind of keep peeling back these layers. But it's something that I'm, a much bigger advocate on now. But I do get a lot of people that ask me like, well, what's your skincare regimen? And I'm like, I
No
just
animal
eat
products.
clean. I just don't eat animal products. I don't have any crazy skincare regimen. I don't spend, money on, I do take care of my skin, but I use very basic products. But it is my diet. It's what I eat. It's what I consume. And it is the lifestyle of continuing, I don't claim to have everything 100%, but you keep evolving. And again, you just keep peeling back those layers and evolving to these different steps of your health. And it all, then you figure out it all kind of goes along within the same realm of your energy and your environment, and creating the best environment for not only your body, but for yourself on a mental level and on a spiritual level.
And I want to say real quick, because when you're talking about energy, a lot of people who do consume heavy like animal product in their diet, they adapt because the human body is so amazing. It's meant to keep us alive in our environment. But just because you adapt, some people adapt to like sleeping 4 to 6 hours, which maybe it'll work, maybe not. Some people adapt to consuming, like a heavy animal product in their diet. And that doesn't mean that inside your body isn't stressed out, because it's working so hard to break down some of the, like the animal products. And one movie documentary that I saw, that I became vegan during, I think it was for 6 months, Cowspiracy.
Oh yeah.
And I just thought it was going to be about cows, which I guess it was about cattle, but that's a really, really good one. And then about the dairy, just the whole dairy industry and
dairy
sugar.
Industry. Yeah. It is.
I
That's a
wanna
really
watch
good
it.
one.
Send it to me, Prima.
Yeah,
I
you
wanna
should.
watch it.
That's a really good one. Cowspiracy.
It's very educational.
What the Health.
What the
is
Hell?
a good one.
Yeah.
The book that I read that I think was kind of the icing on the cake for me, it's called Proteinaholic. And I do a lot of Audible books. But Proteinaholic was written by a doctor, and it's a great story, but he kind of dives into veganism and nutritional benefits. And that was kind of, like I said, the icing on the cake for me, where I was like, okay, I'm going to take this leap. And then once you take the leap and you're really committed to it, once you start seeing those differences in yourself, then you become the testimony. And, I don't really have to, it's not like I'm not selling any product. I'm not pitching anything, but people will start to ask, well, what are you doing? What is your skincare regimen? What are you eating? And it speaks for itself. Like it truly, to me, it shows that our body is not meant to process dairy products. It's not meant to process meat. Then it gets into a deeper level of energy and us consuming products that have been through a lot of stress and just negative environments and abuse, and we're consuming that energy. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, people don't even think about it on that level of energy, but it truly is.
When I first saw, I started to get very educated on like plant-based diets, was because of my skin. So I've always, all my life, I've had hormone imbalances, and that's caused acne. And I don't have, acne as much anymore, just when I'm going to be on my period, but I have a lot of acne scarring. And so I've always tried to like, that's kind of why I got that. That was I was like, it has to be my diet. You know, once I started to learn about nutrition, I'm like, nah, then this is an inflammation issue. I started to learn about, I mean, there's so much information out there. And someone who might not suffer from acne or acne scarring, and you have, you know, better looking skin, it doesn't mean that your liver and your kidneys are not, you know, like going through hell, your heart, fatty liver. So like just, you know, all of the fat that can accumulate. But I wanted to say that for people, again, my concentration was more on like my hormones, like my hormone issues. I'm like, why do I have such bad PMS? I need to fix this like naturally. And so that's why I started looking into nutrition. And what you were saying about like how these animals, and when, you know, some of these films that I've seen is like cows and pigs who are intelligent animals. We're not taught that. But they're intelligent animals that produce different stress or just different chemicals in their body when they are put through stress. And we are
just
consuming,
like we do.
Right. And then we're consuming that. And someone who has hormone issues already, I mean, that was huge for me, but I didn't know this until later in life. And so it was just interesting that you brought that up, because when I explain that to people, I don't do dairy anymore. I'll do a little bit of cheese and ice cream. I just had ice cream yesterday. But when I meal prep, you know, I'm like, oh, and then I had this. But when I meal prep, you know, dairy is just disgusting to me. Like after learning about dairy, I mean, it was quick. It was I just couldn't do it. But so I think, you know, when you're trying to, there's a lot of information, and when you're so used to drinking milk or, you know, just dairy or red meat or whatever it is, start by setting those small goals, but educate yourself, because a lot of these documentaries, they'll change your mind. They'll make you rethink some stuff, and you just won't look at, I'd never looked at milk the same. I was like,
no,
I couldn't.
When you watch Conspiracy, Jess, you're gonna be like, whoa.
Because I feel like
it does.
As I've gotten older, I also have reduced significantly the amount of dairy, because I can't process it. I'm lactose intolerant, and I'm like, well, there's a reason for that. And then it started making me question, like, well, why is my body resisting it? Why is my body not like taking it as it used to? So I have switched over, or I'm transitioning into coconut milk. And then when I go visit Cindy, I remember when I would give my daughter milk, and she's like she's gagging. I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, I can't look at milk. And then that sparked my interest, and she wasn't trying to change my mind. I'm just exaggerating a little bit, but she's like, yeah, Prima, like stop giving that to her, like just switch over to this. And my daughter would drink almond milk that she would give her daughter, and just put a little bit of chocolate powder, and they would drink it. Like, if we got to like manipulate them in any shape, way, or form, just to break like good habits now, then I'm probably like the beginner of us three in this conversation, but I am starting to be more mindful of like what I'm starting to put in my body, because I'm getting older, and I'm not the same who I was when I was 20. Like I feel my metabolism. So now I'm starting to pay attention to things, and I'm like, maybe Cindy is making some sense when she's talking.
She's onto something.
Yeah, there's some crazy to her madness.
Cindy's onto something. Yes,
Cindy's
definitely. You're onto something, and that's, I think we start to age beyond our years when we're not taking care of ourselves. So that's a sign when, you know, I see people that I went to school with, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you know, you look 10 years older than you should, or, you know, you're walking around, you know, with a limp, or, you know, your aches and pains, and your skin's not good, and, you know, not in a judgy way, but it's just like, wow, you know, like I look at people now as you're just not setting yourself up in the best environment for your body, and in turn your mind to thrive. And it goes back to, you know, knowing that these animals are kept in these hostile conditions. They're not in the right environment to thrive. So we're consuming that same energy and those hormones and those things that they're producing because they're so stressed. You know, it'd be like somebody going and getting, we all turned to cannibals and started eating human flesh, like going to the prisons and eating, you know, the people there. Like that's how you have to think of things on an energetic level. You're not going and getting the flesh of the humans that have taken the best care of themselves. So, you know, when you start to think of things on that type of level, and again, it's all intertwined. Like it's not just for your physical health and to gain muscle or to look a certain way. It is energetic health that turns into, like, these turn into thoughts and emotions and your spiritual health. So it's all mixed in together. It's all a part of health. And so for me, being a health coach, it's not, if you just want to build muscle and look a certain way and have a big booty and a small waist, I'm not the health coach for you. That's not really what I advocate for. I advocate for internal health and spiritual health and just being healthy and creating the best healthy environment for you. And I think it's important as women, and especially, you know, young women like yourselves, to set that tone, because we are the ones in our household that are going to do the shopping and majority of the cooking, and our kids are going to look to us. And I think women have to really reclaim their power as leaders in that space. Whether you're a housewife or whether you're a CEO, as a woman, you are still a leader in your space and in your house. And you have to set that tone and that example for your kids, for your nieces and nephews, for everybody that's looking to you. Like my family, I'm the only one in my family that's vegan. They still don't understand it. Like my mom cooked fish the other night, and I've been vegan for 6 years. And she's like, "Do you want some fish?" And I'm like, "Mom, I don't eat that." So, but they know when they come to my house, they're going to get a vegan meal, and they always end up loving it. And, you know, I've gotten a lot better with the way that I cook and how I can turn certain dishes. I made vegan tamales this last Christmas.
Wow.
So like I'm now introducing them into things that they would never do on their own, but they know when they come to my house, they're going to get a vegan meal, and they're okay with that because to them it tastes fine. And they're okay. But again, my point to that is, I think just as women, we have to take a stronger role and be more accountable for the choices and decisions that we're making, because we are the ones that are going to affect, you know, I call it our tribe or our household.
Oh, that's cool. So I feel like I could talk to you forever. Every time we do talk, it's like,
I
look at
know,
the time.
we know. Definitely.
So I want to end with what we talked about, you know, nutrition and fitness, and we talked about setting boundaries and about taking care of ourselves, which was, you know, mental health and our mind, body. And so now I want to end with our emotional health, which is the soul part. And so
yes,
I wanted to just quickly ask if we can all share what we do to help us, to give it an example, like, well, what is that? Because I feel like emotional and mental sometimes kind of could go hand in hand, but they're separate, you know, like setting boundaries is one thing, but then taking deep breaths every time I have a stressful thought to calm and not to enter anxiety, to kind of like talk to myself. And it's kind of like mindfulness. And I'm not good at meditating just yet. I do try it a lot, but I am really good at different breathing exercises. And so just meditated before we started recording. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what we do. I always say this, but what I do is I do deep breathing. Anytime I don't feel well, whether that's physically, it doesn't matter. Mentally, if I get a weird thought, I start to do, it's called like box breathing. I feel like I've seen this YouTube. There's a ton of different breathing techniques, but basically you breathe in for 4 seconds. Like you go 1, 2, 3, 4, you fill your lungs, you hold for 4 seconds, and then you breathe out for 4 seconds. And then you do that as many times as you need. What that does is it helps you kind of slow down when you do get a weird thought, when you're not feeling well. Stuff starts to get weird, and you know, your thoughts start to race and your blood pressure starts to go up a little. And so what the deep breathing does is it kind of calms you down and it brings you back. And while I do the deep breathing, I also do a little affirmation and I say, I am well, I am protected, I am safe. Because my body starts going into fight or flight. And so I just, that's my technique right now. I can't talk too much about meditation because, oh man, I'm still practicing it. So that's my little example.
You know, I think meditation is different for everybody. I think people get it in their head that meditation means sitting cross-legged Indian style on the floor with your eyes closed and, you know, your palms up, and you have to sit there for 10 minutes, which I think is great. And it's a great grounding practice to meditate like that. But I also feel like when I work out, sometimes that's a form of meditation. It's just being able to kind of zone out and get your mind to a place where it's, you know, not running, and you can bring some stillness into the mind. So whatever gets you to that place, you know, is a form of meditation. I have a friend that does movement meditation. So, you know, it depends on whatever that is for you. But I just think it's whatever can help you stop the mind from racing and that constant thought, that your mind is just always jumping from one thought to another. So whatever you can do to get the mind in a much more easeful place. But as far as what I do to, not so much to ground, your question was what kind of practices I do, like on a spiritual level, right? Was that your question?
And for like your emotional health, like I guess for me it's like stressors, and stress doesn't mean like, oh, I got to pay this bill. I mean, it literally means we're you know, we have stressors all around us all the time, but it's being able to, what do you do to overcome like the regular stresses that we have in life?
Yeah. It's a good question. I mean, I don't ever, or now I don't find myself in a place. I mean, of course there might be situations that happen where I feel really anxious, but it's pretty rare. I think I think because I have practiced and worked so much on my health and my wellness, energy is big for me. So I really try to minimize, being in places where I don't feel energetically good, or I'm very picky with who I surround myself with. You know, that's a practice of mine. I don't put myself in environments where, I don't feel good or I don't want to be there. So energy is big for me. But I think because I maintain these practices, so much, I don't really find myself in places where, I'm having to do something in particular. You know, I may take a couple of deep breaths sometimes, or if I'm feeling anxious, I can catch myself really quick. Like I know when I'm doing it, or I know when I'm out of alignment. And I think that's the beauty of getting yourself and being so aware of your body physically, mentally, spiritually, that awareness. Like I catch myself like that. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What are you doing, Jess? Like, you know, calm down. And then I can pull myself back in right away. So I think that is all a part of just the lifestyle that I live and how I practice my life on a day-to-day, and having that grounding ritual for me in the morning and that grounding ritual for me at night, and kind of having that, you know, making sure that I am always cognizant of my energy and my health. I can't really say there's anything in particular that I do.
Just when you were saying that, it kind of reminded me, I would say like your soul emotionally is like you're in control of it. And I feel like that's where I'm still trying to practice it, because if I had a pinpoint, like what do I do emotionally for my soul, is to embrace my emotions right now. I'm still learning that our emotions are evolutionary, good or bad. I need to acknowledge them and embrace them, because Cindy and I have talked several times where we were always taught like, well, don't cry, don't feel sad, but I'm really learning to embrace them. And I don't feel like I've mastered them to control them like you have. And it sounded like that's what you were going towards. But I think I'm just like peeling the onion on that is my emotions and my soul and my spirit. Because in my teachings, where is our soul in our body, you know? And I associate my soul with my emotions because it's all over me. Like when I'm content, my heart is calm. It's not pounding. It's when I'm angry, I feel it in my ears, like the blood just rushing there. And I can feel like the adrenaline. So my soul is my emotions and controlling them and reading my body. And eventually I would like to be more in control of them. But when I'm feeling angry, I want to feel it and not suppress it. And, you know, but I'm not going to like hit a wall or something. It's just acknowledgement of my emotions, like validate them.
Yeah.
Is my soul healing or like my soul, me emotionally taking care of my soul? That's what I was
That's interesting when you said, what is your soul? You know, and you correlate your soul to your emotions and what you're feeling in your body. And to me, I correlate my soul with my energy. So it's the energy that I feel, which is the same. It's the same thing. When you're feeling that rise in heat in your ears, or you're feeling that your stomach's turning because you're anxious or something just happened, that's energy. That's all energy. And I wouldn't say that I'm in control of it. I'm just very aware of it. So I don't know that you get to a place, I don't think I control it. I'm just so aware of it that when it happens, I start to, I can process it really well. You know, when I start to feel that turn in my stomach, or those butterflies in, you know, your stomach when you feel nervous about something, it's like, whoa, you know, I start to kind of talk to myself like, okay, what's happening? Like, why are you feeling this? Like, you know, you're safe, you're good. You know, I can just kind of talk myself down from things. So it's just an awareness. I don't think it's a control, it's an awareness. But I correlate my spirit to my energy.
I like that better. Yeah, awareness.
Yes, and I think we're onto something, Jessica Primis, because we attracted somebody like Jessica, and that's how I felt when I first talked to her, and when she opened up to me, because I thought she was going to be like, sure, girl, I'll probably check out your podcast, or you know, like we reach out to a lot of people that we think are awesome, and the fact that we were able to connect, I think to me tells me, sure, I get out of alignment not as often as before. I'm also aware of it, and I think that's powerful. I think even if you know, just to be aware of how you're feeling, Jessica, you said like your ears, or if you're feeling tired, right, like your energy, like that is a communication. It's not good or bad, it's just telling you it feels better to be in alignment. When you're in alignment, you feel at peace, everything's good. And when you're out of alignment, that's when you start to feel weird. And you just have so much practice, Jessica, that you're able to, you know, like that's good. That just means that you're just able to get back in. And I know that feeling. Right now I'm in it, but I'm struggling because I'm going through some stuff in my life. But it's all beautiful because I know that it's for a reason. And it's still, you know, I'm still doing the work. But I just feel like I know that I'm doing something right, because attracting someone like you is like, for me, is I speak a lot on mentorship, and I've had mentors in the past before, and to me it's like, also surround yourself by people that are somewhere where you want to be, right? You hear that a lot with like mentorship. And I'm not saying that I want to be where Jessica's at, but you're someone that I aspire because of your energy. Like, I know your skin is right, you know, like your energy is right. You do so much stuff and your energy is always right. That means that you're preparing correctly. And so that's where I aspire to be. And so if we could, like, I don't know, I kind of wanted to leave that out there, where it's like taking care of yourself is also like having control of your environment. And so surround yourself with more people who are doing things that you wish to aspire to. Because if you're around people that are still figuring it out, there's no judgment, there's nothing wrong with those people, but your energy is going to feed off. So if you're around people, if you're talking to people, checking in with people that are doing that work, and they're doing it so much so that they're able to, like you just said, snap out of it, snap in, like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not there yet. I don't have that knee-jerk response yet, but I know that I can get there because I look at you. You know what I mean? And so, like, it's helpful. It's like, yes, I know that my stars are aligning. You know what I mean? Or however you want to call that.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And it's practice. It's like anything. And that's why I always go back to kind of fitness and, you know, building that discipline and that commitment. Just like if you want a nice body, you got to show up at the gym. You got to eat the right things. You got to have that discipline and commitment. Getting to a place where I can recognize and be so in tune with my energy, it's taken practice. Like it has got, you know, I wasn't always like this. This is something I continuously practiced throughout the years. And I definitely wouldn't say I'm a master of it. I don't know that you ever become a master of it, but I think you just get to a place where you're so aware of yourself. And that's falls back in line with self-respect, self-love. There's nobody that can say they know me better than I know myself. Like I know myself, and that takes work. It takes a lot of work, and it's the work that most people don't want to do. You know, you got to dig deep. You got to go in and figure out your demons and battle those demons and get to a place where you can really recognize yourself and recognize everything that's going on with you. So you 100% can get there, and it just takes practice and awareness.
Yay.
This was amazing.
Yes, it was.
Thank you, ladies. No, I so appreciate it. I think you did. Your energy attracted, you know, me, and my energy attracted. Like this is something that I talk a lot about as well. Is, you know, I talk about finding when you get to a place in your life, you start to want to find women or find younger versions of yourself. And I see that in both of you. It's like, you know, I've been there, so I can now, you know, look at you ladies and say, I remember being in that place and wanting to do more and wanting to evolve and wanting to figure these things out. So anything I can do to help, like I'm all for mentoring or offering advice where I can, whatever it is, because I know how that feels, and I was you. You guys are just younger versions of me. So you're going to get there.
Yay.
For sure.
No, that's beautiful. That's a blessing, because not a lot of women are willing, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you know, women are busy. And so the fact that, you know, you're willing to give back, it also puts me in a position where I want to give back to, you know, if ever it's needed, or if anybody ever reached out to me. But thank you. That's so sweet.
No, thank you. It's the full circle. This is how I look at it. It's the first full circle of health, right? You have to recognize yourself and do the work, and then it all comes back around. But you also have to, like, this is a part of my health too, is getting more into community service work, into mentorship, into things where I can, you know, help and really serve. And that's kind of the vibe that I've been on lately. It's like once you get to a place where you feel really strong, that's when you can show up and serve authentically and in your best self. That's where you can truly be effective and serve in your community with other women, whatever it is. So I'm super happy that you guys reached out, and it is a blessing to have this conversation with you both. And yeah, hopefully it doesn't stop here.
No, hopefully it doesn't.
Prima, before you sign us off, I just want to say, Jess, thank you for your time. You are true to your vision. It's easier to say things, but you actually have actions behind your words, and in all levels, mind, body, and soul. So thank you so much for your time and energy. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was such a great pleasure talking to you ladies and meeting you, another Jess.
That to the
Meeting another
list.
Jess. And yeah, Cindy, we jumped on our first call and we were just chatting it up like we knew each other forever.
know.
So
It was
yeah,
magical. No,
it
thank
was.
you.
It was great.
And we hope that you
Thank
feel if ever you have it in your schedule to come back, it would be great because I feel like we had
course.
so much that I'm like, oh, I didn't talk
Yes.
about this, but this
I
is like
know.
our situation. So
Yeah.
thank you.
No, for sure. I would love to come back.
Okay, good, good. Thank you
Okay.
so much,
All right,
everybody, for
ladies.
listening.
Yes. Thank you. Take care.
Take care, Jessica.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.